Hey everyone, how's it going? Grizzlyberry here with another TF2 video. Today we're going to go over what I think are the 5 worst choke points in TF2. Now before we get started, let's go over what a choke point actually is. Choke point is a strategy term that refers to any enclosed space, corridor, or area where large numbers of players are forced to pass through with no alternate routes. This makes choke points incredibly useful for the defending team and incredibly infuriating for the attacking team, as they only have to watch one area. Now the majority of choke points in TF2 do have alternate routes, but they are usually meant for flanking instead of the main push. If there's an area that you find yourself getting stuck at more often than others, it's more than likely a choke. So without further ado, let's get into the top 5 worst choke points in TF2. Coming in at number 5 is the second point of Gold Rush's second stage. A lot of the earlier TF2 maps have a reputation for being too narrow in close quarters, and Gold Rush is no different. Once the attacking team gets to this point, they're forced to push the cart through this tight tunnel, and the area is so narrow that there's barely enough room to get around the cart. Rockets and stickies can do a lot of splash damage here, constantly forcing the attackers to retreat, but luckily for Blue, Red has a hard time pushing out because the tunnel is also their only option, unless they're a jump class. This gives Blue the opportunity to set up a decent forward base, making it easier for Blue to force their way through using their respawn advantage. Now there is a route the attackers can take that will give them the high ground, but it still spits them out in front of the defending team, making it difficult to make any progress. Couple this with the fact that there are no flanking routes beyond this point, and you've got yourself a nasty choke. Next on the list at number 4 is Payload Hoodoo. Hoodoo suffers from a lot of the same issues as Gold Rush, including tight areas with limited flanks. Hoodoo in general is known for its chokes, but the first point of the last stage might be the worst. Making the first turn leads to a glorified hallway. No flanking routes are available, and only jump classes have access to the upper building. So unless you're a jump class, you have to fight it out around this corner at a severe height disadvantage. Soldiers and demos on red are able to stand back and spam rockets and stickies, and with the help of an engineer's dispenser, they never have to leave. Tack on the fact that snipers can stand at the end of the line and have a clean shot at anybody coming around the corner, and you're looking at one of the nastiest choke points in the game. On the flip side, all Blue really needs is a solid uber push, and they can use the splash damage of soldiers and demos to their advantage. However, this point still gets number 4 on the list due to how limited options are and how effective spam is. Coming in at number 3 on the list is Barn Blitz Last. The last point on Barn Blitz is notorious for being impossible to push, so much so that when the competitive community adopted the map, they added a new entrance and widened the existing ones. But in Valve's version, it's still a defensive stronghold. It's not uncommon to see 2 or more sentries covering multiple entrances and locking down the entire area. It takes a lot of coordination from Blue to successfully push this area. With Red spawn being so close by, Blue needs to move in immediately after the sentries are destroyed, or the engineers will have them back up in no time. Both minor routes leading to the height advantage can only be accessed through narrow doorways, making it easy for Red to lock them down. Unless Blue can gain control of these areas, they have a slim chance of gaining any ground. Back on the ground level, pushing through the main entrance is incredibly difficult due to how effective it is to spam. The shallow depth of the entrance allows soldiers and demos to dish out a ton of splash damage. Add all of this together, and Barn Blitz Last is one of the hardest points to push in the game. Gold Rush receives the distinct honor of being the only map to make the list twice, making it one of the most choke-infested maps in the game. Attacking the final point of the third stage is an absolute nightmare. The cart path makes a 90-degree turn straight into a narrow, cluttered area susceptible to spam. There's just enough room for a couple of players in the carts to be pushed through. Other than the main choke, Blue doesn't have a whole lot of options. They can go through the tunnel, which puts them at a severe height disadvantage, or they can go through the building on the right, which leads to a drop-down that is very easily spammed. Of course, there's also the maze of a building connected to the lower route, but it's a dead end and pretty easy to spam. On top of all of this, there's a balcony in the back that snipers love to camp and can only be accessed from red spawn and a box jump unless you're a jump class. And let's face it, you're not going to get back there without being gunned down. Usually the best option is to keep throwing bodies at the cart in hopes it'll make some progress. A good Uber can do wonders, but by the time Blue gets through the choke, they'll only have a few seconds to take out the 2 turtling engineers that this point is guaranteed to have. And finally, rounding out our list at number 1 is the second point of CP Dust Bowl's final stage. I cannot think of a more iconic choke point in the game. Long and winding, this area of Dust Bowl is the epitome of what it means to be a choke point. There is one flank route, but it's a narrow tunnel that spits you out well below the enemy team and is easy to spam. It's useful for spies, but usually there are too many sentries to make it effective for any other class. Most of the time, Blue will resort to pushing through the main choke, hoping their respawn advantage coupled with teleporters will give them the edge. If the defending team has a competent demo, it can be an uphill battle as the choke can safely be spammed from around the corner. If Red is aggressive, it's very difficult for Blue to make up any ground. If by any chance Blue does make it around the corner, they're usually met with sentries and snipers, giving them no option but to Uber through. It's not uncommon for fights to drag on for 7 or 8 minutes here, but it can also be some of the most fun you can have in TF2. So there you have it, those are my top 5 worst choke points in TF2. You'll notice a lot of these maps have the same issues, such as super tight corridors coupled with long sight lines. If you are a map maker, it's worth looking at these areas as examples of what not to do. Most of the maps on this list were made in the early days of TF2, and since then, a lot has changed. Hundreds of new weapons have been added, and people have since learned the optimal way to play certain maps. That's not to say these maps were fine when added, but they probably weren't quite as bad as they are today. So if you think I missed a choke point or you disagree with my list, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you later. Have a good one, guys. Bye.
This is Heavy Weapons Guy. Thank you for watching Grizzly Berry. Now click that little red button. Ha ha!